I'm willing to bet there's a portion of my audience that has heard of a radio host named Eddie Trunk. Eddie Trunk has made it his personal crusade to rail against rock bands using backing tracks in their live performances. Seemingly, in Eddie's world, there are no exceptions. If you have any kind of backing track in your performance, you are a phony and you are not worthy of being on stage. I would like to weigh in on this topic since I'm in a rock band and we use backing tracks. This is Dancing with Ghosts.
So the latest drama with this, and it's been endless, whether it was, the kid in Santa Cruz walking away from the microphone and the vocal coming out, or whether it was the band Falling in Reverse canceling because they admitted they didn't have their laptops, or whether it was Kiss's manager admitting Paul Stanley sings to a track, or whether it was Blackie Lawless admitting that he's singing to a track, or every day that I forget what the band was. I don't know. All That Remains. I forget what that band was. I don't want to say the wrong band. It might not have been them, but it was just a couple weeks ago. Guitar player. Hey, I can't make the tour, but I recorded all my stuff. You'll hear me every night on a track. It's fucking insane what's going on.
Eddie Trunk and some other purists brimming with boomer energy have been slamming bands that use backing tracks for years now. And I get it. When you were a teenager in the 1970s, rock bands got on stage, plugged in, and kicked ass, man. But do these people not understand that rock has evolved since the 1970s? I mean, hell, by the 1980s, beloved prog rock band Rush were using backing synthesizer tracks on songs such as Red Sector A. Purely raw rock music had a renaissance of sorts in the early 90s with the grunge movement, but by the mid to late 90s, electronic rock was coming back in full force with bands such as Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, and Orgy. This argument about live bands using backing tracks especially pisses me off when it comes to small and up-and-coming bands such as mine, where I cannot afford to hire a keyboard player to take on the road, let alone make space for them in the van for a fifth member. This is the case for most smaller bands that use backing tracks. For practical purposes, it's the only way that they can bring their vision to the stage. And for someone who has as big of a platform as Eddie Trunk to just constantly shit on that is such a short-sighted dick move. I think the people who complain about backing tracks are a bit confused. I feel like they are conflating backing tracks with lip syncing. And therein lies a huge difference. If my band has a synthesizer part in the song and some extra percussion, and I don't have enough band members to replicate those sounds, that's when we use a backing track. But going on stage and acting like you're singing and playing when it's all pre-recorded and your microphone isn't even on, that's a completely different scenario. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were the most recent band to come to mind in this regard. After the Super Bowl 48 pictures surfaced of the Chili Peppers playing without their instruments even being plugged in, it caused a huge uproar on the Twitter sphere and everywhere else. Now, that's not to say the band didn't have the technical ability to play their own songs. Apparently, it's a Super Bowl regulation that all bands play to pre-recorded music to minimize any technical problems that could happen on live TV. Now, if you went and paid to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers live and that same thing happened, that's a completely different story. That would be some bullshit. Kiss is an active example of a band that is doing this and charging high ticket prices to do so. Lead singer Paul Stanley's vocals have been asked for a long time now, and it is not that big of a secret that he sings along with pre-recorded lead vocal tracks. It's been said that Motley Crue does some version of this as well. Now, that is something to get upset about. That is false advertisement. But when people rag on Falling in Reverse for not being able to play their live show because their laptops were stolen, as easy as it is to laugh at them for being fakes or whatever, in 2023, that's a legitimate show killer for some bands. We have certain songs in our set that would totally not work without the backing keyboard parts. When you start a band, you build your vision for what you want it to sound like. Some bands want that more raw, classic rock and roll sound, and that's fine. But it's also fine if a band has a grander vision and wants extra instrumentation on stage, but also realizes that it's not feasible to hire all the people necessary to make that happen. Not to mention if you want to even remotely survive as a relevant rock band in this current musical climate. You have to infuse all kinds of elements from EDM to rap to whatever else to make your music stand out. And as we all know, there is nothing live about EDM or rap. In fact, I made a whole video about why rap music sucks live. So if you want to rage about nothing being live, go check that video out. In a perfect world, 100% live is ideal, of course. I don't think anyone feels great about having to run a backing track over having the real thing. But oftentimes there are many different factors that prevent that from being a reality. I also did a video where I go even more in depth about backing tracks and how they're actually a good thing. You can check that video out as well at the end of this video. I wish people like Eddie Trunk, who have such a large platform, would make a distinction between running backing tracks versus lip syncing, because it's really putting an unnecessary taboo on bands that do use backing tracks. In closing, lip syncing bad, backing tracks not bad. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section, like this video, and subscribe to this channel. Damn it. And yeah, have a good rest of your night.